there, folks. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could make it. In today's episode, I am very excited to be making a sausage recipe that was submitted to me by one of our longtime patrons. Al gives me a call, and he begins to tell me about him and his wife's favorite dish and how his wife had asked whether it was possible to turn the garlic shrimp and broccoli dish into a sausage. So he had a recipe, he's been working on it, formulating it, and he wanted me to give it a try to see what I thought about it and suggest any changes that might be made. And after reading the recipe, I immediately knew that we needed to have it on this year's Celebrate Sausage. So let's make the garlic shrimp and broccoli sausage, shall we?
Let's look at the ingredients. For starters, we've got shrimp. We've got about 45% shrimp in this recipe, and then we've got 40% pork and fat. The total fat content, though, for this sausage is probably somewhere around 10 or 15%. So this is a fairly lean sausage. If you want to bump the fat content up to 20, 25%, have at it, not a problem. So there we go. Those are going to be the two main proteins that we're going to be using. The pork is basically there to give the sausage a better texture and to help it all bind together. So what we're going to do is just process the meat the way we normally would. I'm going to cut up the pork into pieces that are small enough to fit into my grinder. And we are going to be grinding the pork and fat on a smaller plate, and then we're going to be grinding the shrimp on a slightly larger plate. And so I'm just cutting these up into big chunks. If you want to do a rough chop on the shrimp, I think that would be great as well. It's a personal preference. I do think that the pork is going to give us what we need to hold everything together. So there we go. This is what our ingredients look like. We need to pop it into the freezer so that it can partially freeze before we grind it. And what do you do with the shells? Well, I'm just going to add a little bit of water to it, stick it on the stove, bring it to a simmer for about an hour, and create a very simple, unseasoned shrimp stock that we're going to add to this sausage. I don't want too much, but I do want to have that shrimp stock available. As far as the spices go, this is where we get to have some fun. Let's start off with a little salt. Next up, we have some ginger powder, and then we're going to add a little white pepper. I do want to come in with a binder to help with the texture of this sausage. And I want to add some toasted sesame seeds. I think that that would be nice. And as you can see here, we are altering this recipe as we go. Sometimes you'll get an idea and say, hey, this might work with this sausage. That's exactly what we're doing right now. So spice profile, pretty simple. We are going to add some minced garlic, set that to the side. Let's look at the liquids that we're going to add. We've got our very simple, like I said, unseasoned shrimp stock. So we're going to set that right there to the side. I've got low sodium soy sauce, and then we're going to add a little oyster sauce. Now these two ingredients are going to have their own sodium content. And it is important to be able to calculate how much salt is in those ingredients. If you don't know how to do that, check out the recommended video. I'm going to put a tag for it right there in the top right-hand corner. And I explain how to, figure out how much salt is in those ingredients where you only know the sodium. We are going to add just a little bit of that shrimp stock because I don't want that shrimp flavor to be overwhelming. But if you love that shrimp flavor, you can add as much as you like. Our total liquid content is going to be 100 grams or 10% of the recipe. So there it is. All right. Very pleased with this. So far, everything's looking like it's coming together nicely. Next up is the broccoli. How should we process the broccoli for this dish? You can steam it, right? You can, maybe blanch it real quick. That'll retain a lot of its texture. It really just depends on what you're looking for. There's no wrong answer. I think what we're going to do is just chop it up into small pieces and then just give it a quick pan fry, add a little bit of color. We do have a blazing hot skillet, and this is going to move and cook very, very quickly. The oil that I'm using is a combination of sunflower oil with a little bit of sesame oil to give it that hint of sesame oil flavor. Very quickly, it's starting to take on some color. Absolutely beautiful. And there we go. Done deal. Okay, now our meat is ready to be processed, and it looks great. It is definitely partially frozen, and we are going to keep the pork separate from the shrimp. We're going to grind the pork first on a 6mm plate, and then we're going to grind the shrimp on a 10mm plate. Beautiful looking grind, not a problem at all. And look, how you grind your meat or rough chop your meat, that's a personal preference. You get to make that decision when you're making the sausage. Each way it's going to deliver its own texture and mouthfeel. And so, you just got to go with what you like. Let's mix everything together. One ingredient we didn't talk a lot about is the rice. This is day-old rice. Roughly 15% of the recipe is going to be rice. And then there's our broccoli. right at the last minute, I felt like I wanted to add a little extra sesame flavor, and so I am going to add a little bit of that sesame oil to the liquid. You don't want to add too much because that could ruin the texture of your sausage, but because we are adding rice to this recipe, that rice will also help absorb some of the excess oil, some of that liquid, and it should make for a relatively juicy product, although I don't think it's going to look like a traditional sausage that has fat leaking out all over the place when you slice it, just because the fat content is so incredibly low. And we have not only rice, but a binder that will absorb this liquid as well, so the juice is going to be more maintained in the sausage. At least that's the idea. So we're going to give this a mix, and I'm not going to edit this out because people always ask me, how long should I mix if I'm using a KitchenAid like yours, where you're going to see it in real time? And I want to say that the entire mixing process didn't take a whole lot longer than 60 seconds, maybe 75 seconds. I mean, it happens very, very quick with the KitchenAid, which is great, but it also means that you can very easily overmix it. So I'm looking at this mix right now. It's starting to get super sticky. We're on the lowest speed possible. I'm going to grab a little handful and turn my hand upside down, and if it's done right, that should stick there. And it does. So there's no need to overmix your sausage. Once you get that right texture, you can move on to the next step. And in this particular case, we are adding our rice and our broccoli. And all I'm doing is incorporating it. So here in the KitchenAid, this process shouldn't take but about 10 or 15 seconds of mixing. And if you're mixing by hand, just fold everything in right at the last second. Make sure everything is well incorporated. Let's put this into a casing. Now, if you don't happen to have a dedicated sausage stuffer, you could fry these up as little balls, and I think that they would be incredible. Maybe even stuff it in like an egg roll wrapper. That'd be pretty good. The horn we're using is a 3/4 inch horn. This is a 5-pound sausage stuffer from the Sausage Maker. Great little stuffer, especially if you don't make huge batches, or if you're constantly making small batches of experimental sausages like we are always doing. It's a very easy stuffer to use and to clean, and so yeah, really like it. Our meat's in there in such a way where we try to minimize any air pockets. We're going to get that onto the base and get this into its casing. Now, look at my fingers. You see how the casing has a translucent quality about it? This lets me know that the casing has a thin wall. If you notice that it is grainy or yellow or thick in any way, then it's going to be very difficult to get a snappy bite out of that portion of the casing. So be sure to soak overnight and make sure your casing is translucent before you use it. Let's get this stuffed. Nice and easy, very good. What I'm doing here is I'm pushing the remaining sausage meat that's left behind in that horn. I'm pushing it out with a sausage stuffing horn cleaner. There we go. Much easier to clean now. And we have to link these sausages. So how you link these sausages is completely up to you. I think for this sausage, maybe I'll do, I don't know, some 4-inch chubs or something like that. That might look cool. And I'm just going to find a little mark on that baking sheet, roughly give me about 4 inches, and then each one of my sausages will be twisted at that mark. I'm going to alternate the way I twist my sausage. 3 spins forward, 3 spins back, 3 spins forward, and there's lots of different ways to twist your sausage. There's no one right answer, but once we get it twisted up, we need to give this sausage a little poke. First and foremost, I'm looking for air pockets. If you don't see any air pockets, just give the overall sausage a prick. You don't have to get too crazy, but pricking your sausage keeps your sausage from bursting during the cooking process. It also helps that casing adhere to the meat a little bit better. And that's going to give you a nice, tender, snappy bite. All right, so this is a fresh sausage. You can cook it up now, but if you let it rest in the fridge overnight, all of those beautiful flavors are going to come together, and the little twists that we made are going to dry up, and that's going to keep your meat from spilling out of the sides when you cook it. So into the fridge it goes, and it's now tomorrow. Let me show you a different way to cook your sausage. We're going to start with medium heat, a little bit of oil, and a quick pan sear. So all I'm looking for is beautiful color on both sides of the sausage. That's it. The sausage is still going to be very raw. Once we get that beautiful color, we're going to remove it from our skillet and we're going to put it into an oven. The oven temperature is going to be between 275 and 300, at which point we will bake our sausage until it reaches the internal temperature that we're looking for. In our case, it's going to be around 150. The entire baking process happened pretty quick. I think for us, it didn't take longer than about 10 minutes. And this is what our sausage looks like. This sausage cooked perfectly, and it got me thinking about, that particular step, the final step of making a sausage. How do you cook it? Unfortunately, this is where most people ruin their sausage. So you can make a sausage perfect from beginning to end, but cook it the wrong way and have a disaster of a sausage. If you want to see a video where I explain how to properly cook a sausage using lots of different techniques, let me know in the comment section below. All right, this is what our center cut looks like, and I am loving that. We've got a beautiful smooth slice, great looking texture.
The garlic shrimp and broccoli sausage, one of 3 sausages that we're featuring on the show this year that has a bit of an Asian twist. And let me tell you what I'm looking for in this sausage in order for me to consider it a success. Number 1 is the texture. I don't want it too firm. I don't want it too soft, and I also don't want it to be crumbly. When you start adding things like rice to a sausage, the amount of rice will certainly affect the end result. And so in the case of something like boudin, you're not getting that classic sausage texture. I don't want this to be like boudin. I want this to be like a sausage that happens to have rice in it, but it still has that beautiful texture. So number 1, that's what I'm looking for. And the second thing is the flavor. How close are we to the actual garlic shrimp and broccoli dish, the recipe that we modeled this particular sausage after? So it'll be interesting to find out. I can tell you, as far as the technique in which the sausage was made, this is absolutely perfect. It has a beautiful, bouncy feel to it. The casing is nice and tight. I don't know if I can kind of demonstrate that for you, but you can see right here. Notice the ends. They're all sewed up, and you got that with both sides. And this comes from letting it rest overnight in the fridge. It kind of dries those twists out so that when you cook your sausage, the sausage meat's not pouring out the back end. And so very happy with the way the sausage turned out after the cook. And while we're talking about the cook, you can cook this sausage any number of ways. We started with a pan sear and then finished in the oven. And the reason I like doing that is because you get that beautiful Maillard reaction, that boost of flavor on the casing, and then you finish it off at 275, 300 in the oven for a slightly more gentle finish, and that really helps preserve the integrity of the sausage. You can totally, start to finish, cook it on a skillet, you can simmer it, you could poach it, you could pop it on a grill if you want. I don't necessarily think that this would be a great sausage smoked, because I think that maybe perhaps the smoke flavors might contrast with some of the other Asian flavors, but I may be wrong. So if you do happen to smoke it, leave me a comment in the comment section. How was it? The casing on the sausage is incredibly tight. And, realistically, this is what your sausage should look like when you're finished cooking. Mine don't always look like this. I would say about 95% of my sausages look like this. But every once in a while, maybe I render out a little too much fat and it gets a little wrinkly. But this right here, this is a perfect sausage. No question about it. As far as the slice goes, beautiful smooth slice. I'm definitely not crumbly. I'm getting, broccoli and rice all inside. Okay, this actually smells like garlic, shrimp, and broccoli. I'm definitely picking up that sesame element, that soy element. I mean, it smells amazing. Okay, all right, time for the taste test. Going in. There it is. That is garlic shrimp and broccoli in a sausage format. Unbelievable. And I'm loving the mouthfeel. That was one of the first things that I was looking for. What's the texture of this sausage? This is what the bite looks like. Check that out. Nice and bouncy. Loving that. And the casing is nice and tender. Ultra juicy sausage. Let me just take one more bite. There were a couple things that I wanted to make sure that this sausage had, and one of them was shrimp flavor. I didn't want the flavor of the shrimp to get lost with everything else, with the pork, the broccoli, the spices, things like that. But at the same time, I didn't want it to overwhelm the sausage. So I think that the little bit of shrimp stock that we added, coupled with the amount of shrimp that's in this recipe, really brings that shrimp element to it. I mean, you're eating a shrimp sausage. The pork is there, but it's kind of in the background. I'm loving it. I think this is a great sausage. It's a fun recipe. Matter of fact, I think if you took the raw meat mixture and put it in some shumai wrappers, it would be absolutely amazing. However you choose to do it, this is an incredibly flavorful recipe. You're definitely getting that shrimp element, so I'm super excited about that, and I hope you get a chance to try it. If you have any questions about the garlic shrimp and broccoli sausage, leave them in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video or found it entertaining in any way, be sure to give this video a like. If you enjoy sausages, whether you like eating them or making them, you've come to the right place, because we are uploading a brand new sausage making recipe every day through the month of October. We're just getting started, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.